Alright everybody, welcome back to cilinixfxcapital and welcome to yet another live stream, 1 minute too late. I forgot the time and then I saw it was 19 or something and I rushed to my computer, but it's 21, but we're live right now. Everything should be working, audio should be good. It tells me that the internet connection is good as well, but we shall see. I've had some troubles with that, so if at any point of time it lags, let me know, okay? But welcome to the stream, everybody. I'll quickly let everybody know that we are actually live, so that people who want to join at least get the opportunity to do so. So I'll quickly do that. Give me a minute, and get accommodated to the live stream. The data is coming out in 9 minutes, so we still have some time. Still some time to talk about the markets and to talk about the different possibilities here as well, right? Because obviously it's quite major data, but what's going to happen is still uncertain, and whether it's what type of market reaction it's going to cause, we'll see. I mean, it could go both ways. We also, like, this data is a little bit more clear than the data that we had on Wednesday, because the data on Wednesday was obviously quite was quite double. What was that sound? I don't know. But the data that we had on Wednesday was quite double, as in, both results could be bullish and bearish. And this data is quite clear. I mean, we just want lower inflation. And that's the good result long term. And then short term, there can still be some deviations in what the market does. That can always happen. But at least then long term we have either good news or bad news. But the thing is, and I'm almost done, by the way, but with telling everybody that we're live. This is the last one. Voila. Yeah, okay, we're good to go. Welcome to the stream, everybody that's tuning in right now. But the thing is, yeah, we're good. Is the internet is alright, right? Or at least the frame rate is good, right? I'm getting some mixed data. It seems to be a little bit worse than the last time, but it should be fine. So we'll just we'll see how it goes. Ali, welcome to the stream. User, Lore Manuel, Anthony, welcome to the stream. Miss Pear, Edboy, Euro Day Lily, Matic, welcome. Peter, welcome. Oslav, welcome. Santos, welcome. E-Pool. What's up, everybody? Thunder Up, welcome to the stream. Yeah, always be careful with those buy wall orders, of course. I mean, it could be a nice buy wall, could also just be a bit of an iceberg order, or could be some sort of a manipulation limit order by Wills. So E-Pool, we're going to get some data. We're going to get inflation rate and CPI data today. Look, we just want lower data, right? The expectation is pretty good, because the expectation is that the CPI will rise, and that's ultimately, I mean, I could spend quite a lot of time talking about this, but ultimately the thing is okay, inflation is decreasing, right? I mean, the expectation for the inflation rate is that it's going down from 2.7 to 2.5%. And that the core inflation rate will be 2.5% instead of 2.6%. Would be nice if that happens. We would prefer it if it was lower than expected. If it's higher than expected, that's slightly bearish. But again, that doesn't necessarily mean that we're going to get a dump. I don't think that it's that it's that bad, to be fair. Higher than expected inflation rate data. But the CPI is basically just a basket of all the goods that people need. So yes, inflation rate is decreasing, but there still is inflation, right? So the money that you have is still worth less, and that is something I personally I personally don't like about how governments and data agencies, how they display and how they publish inflation rate data. Then all of a sudden inflation rate is going down, and quite a lot of people who are not aware of what inflation is, quite a lot of people think, oh, that's great, then our money is safely stored again. But no, the money is still becoming worth less, right? But just at a slower rate. But okay, so generally what we want to see is lower than expected data. Expectation is 2.5 for inflation rate. Expectation is 2.5 for core inflation rate. For CPI, it's 325.4. We also want lower than that. But the thing is, why I'm saying that if we get higher data, why I don't think it matters is the fact, we'll still see bearish pressure in the markets, but I don't think, like, let's say that the inflation rate is 2.6 or 2.7%. I would say that it's not most likely that we will drop down lower than the lows we made last week. And the key reason for that is that I don't think it will matter that much, okay? Because for now, in 2026, and by the way, I'm keeping my eyes on the data. It's still a little bit more than 3 minutes before we get it. But the current expectation for the entirety of 2026 is that we're going to get 2 rate cuts, okay? 2 rate cuts in the entirety of 2026. I don't think that's going to change if the inflation rate right now is a little bit higher than expected. While on the other hand, if it's lower than expected, so let's say, I don't think this is true, but if it's 2.3% instead of 2.5%, okay, then all of a sudden we look at the next meeting, the 18th of March, or we look at the next meeting, the 19th of April, and then we say, okay, well, then the probability becomes higher that we get rate cuts sooner. And that does matter. So it almost feels like nothing can go wrong, but obviously that's not true. And if you look at the volatility index, unrest in the financial markets is also very elevated. So it's still it's still risky markets, I would say. Truls, welcome to the stream. You're not at the right place to relax. Okay, no relaxing will be done in this live stream. It's going to be it's going to be nothing but seriousness in this live stream. It's even illegal to laugh. So get out of here. James, welcome to the stream. Thomas, welcome. Strath, welcome to the stream. A 2x with $1,000 without leverage at this point of time, I don't know. I don't know. With leverage, we can talk a little bit more. Without leverage, you'd probably have to look on chain. Otherwise it's going to be very hard, at least to do it very quick, right? I mean, if you have $1,000 and you buy Bitcoin and you can wait years, I think you can turn it into 2K. I mean, you did not say in what time frame we're talking about, right? So could be better. KMNLW, welcome to the stream. Imran, welcome. Breiker, welcome to the stream. Gold, I'm not certain. I haven't looked at gold too much. I think gold is just going to remain rotational. Gold has been quite stable here in this area between 5,000 and 4,900. I think it's just going to remain in that area. I don't think the data will make the dollar move that much that it's going to affect gold, honestly. But yeah, so we're almost getting into the news. A little bit less than a minute, as you can see. My general expectations for Bitcoin are still that we are forming a local bottom. I made a full video on that yesterday, of course. I still do think that, but this data will matter for the short-term volatility. I think this data matters for the short-term volatility. I don't think this data matters for the long-term direction. I think the long-term direction, even if this data is bad, I still think we're going to form a local bottom and trend down later in 2026. And if the data is good, I mean, maybe we'll pump a little bit earlier right now and we'll rally, but then eventually I still think we'll find resistance and we're still going to drop down lower. So in that sense, inflation rate matters a lot short-term. A little bit over 10 seconds left, matters a lot short-term. Long-term, one data point does not matter that much. Okay, almost getting it. Be ready, everybody. 2, 1, and we are going to get the data. And I'm not going to take a look at the price before we... It's lower than expected. It's lower than expected. Ooh, that's not bad. That is not bad. It's also not crazy, but the CPI is lower than expected. Inflation rate is 2.4% right now. That is definitely not bad, honestly. Long term, let's actually take a look at the footprint. I mean, the thing is, I'll get to something very important in a moment, okay? So don't tune out. I still remember the last time that we had inflation rate data, the same thing happens because, we'll talk about the price action right here in a moment, and of course. But the thing that you should know is that good news is also the best time for whales and OTC desks and whoever wants to sell a lot of Bitcoin to sell their Bitcoin. So don't instantly buy, okay? Good news does not always mean that the price goes up. How strange that sounds. And I know that sounds very, very, I know that's not great because the markets have already been incredibly weak. But long term, this is great. Okay, long term, this is great because the inflation rate, just for everybody tuning in a little bit later, a minute ago we got the data. Inflation rate month on month is lower than expected. Inflation rate year on year is lower than expected. CPI is lower than expected. And then the core inflation rate year on year and month on month is as expected. And then the CPI SA is a little bit higher than expected. So overall, I would say this is good data, and that is confirmed by a small move down by the dollar strength index. It's not a major move down. Volatility index is also decreasing right here, so that's a bit of a good thing. It seems like the stability, at least, or the potential stability, likes this. The S&P 500 is pushing down. That is less fortunate, but that has been relatively bearish already. And this is not updating. This is old data. I think I think it's not updating at this point of time. But yeah, still. So overall, good data. So far, market's flat. Okay, volume is also quite low at the moment, but the data is good, I think. So momentum for Ohm. Wow, look at this. Wow. Look at this beautiful move. Bear market where? Bear market where? We have beautiful moves all over the place. But yeah, I mean, the market's right now extremely volatile, right? I mean, the market is not really moving, even though this is good news, right? This is still good news. Because the benchmark for the Federal Reserve is 2%. So this definitely does increase the probability that we are going to get a rate cut in not March. I mean, March is very unlikely. But potentially April, potentially June, then it is a possibility. You can see right there the possibility for June is slightly higher. But we will still have to see, because now the big question is what is the United States going to do? Okay, we have the NYO in a little bit less than an hour. And as I said in my videos this morning, whatever happens, or whenever we have data 1 hour before the NYO, which this was, right? What always happens is that you have the initial reaction straight after the data. So that was this, and that's still what we will see. So far, a little bit of a bullish reaction, but it's incredibly minor. And the volume is also quite low, I would say, for now at least. However, the real volatility and the real volume will kick in a little bit less than an hour when the NYO happens. Okay, when the US session opens, that is when most of the volume, when most of the volume will kick in, and volume kicking in on relatively low liquidity coming out of the European and the Asian session, that will cause volatility. So that's going to be the major thing right now, and honestly, I think the volatility can be quite dangerous. So we'll get to my final prediction going into the NYO in a moment. But so far it's not bad. I mean, you can actually see right here. I mean, it's not the case that a ton of leverage is coming in. That's definitely not true. You have some leverage coming in, about $40 million, around 67,500. But you have some shorts coming in as well. You have some shorts right here that were opened about half an hour ago. So this is not bad. I mean, these are not markets that are going to crash imminently. But obviously, we still do have a bit of a problem still. After this good data, bullish data, right? I do want to stress that. It's bullish data long term. But short term, unfortunately, that means volatility. And there's two things that I think you need to be aware of. The volatility index is still elevated, right? So that means that the instability and the unrest in the general financial markets is still relatively high, and that's further confirmed by this, right? I mean, if you look at the S&P 500, the S&P 500 is still pushing down. And then on the other hand, like I said a little bit earlier, it has happened before. I think the last time we actually got better than expected inflation rate data, it was actually a moment where the price pushed down, right? I cannot, shall I look it up? I think we can actually find it. Berkani, I hope not. I hope not. Ahmad, welcome to the stream, and thank you very much, man. Okay. Let me quickly see the inflation rate data. Was it here? Or here? Yeah, I think it was the... no, not October. There's no way. Was it right here? January the 13th? No, but it's not showing me all the data. Definitely not. Yeah, I'm not certain, but the last time what happened is that the inflation rate data was better than expected, so it was lower than expected, but it was used, and it's also, it makes sense, right? I mean, if you are a market maker that still has a supply of Bitcoin left that they need to sell, or if you're an OTC desk, right? So in the recent period, you've bought a lot of Bitcoin at a discount from institutions. When are you going to sell that Bitcoin? It's after good news. Okay, so that's why good news long term is good, but short term it can cause volatility, and especially when the volatility index itself is elevated, that makes me scared. All right, that's nightmare fuel. That's nightmare fuel. So when we're talking about Bitcoin right here, I still do think when we're zoomed out, I think that this bottom right here at 60,000 is a local bottom. Okay, and unless we see a major escalation, I'm just naming an example between Iran and Israel, okay? Unless something like that happens, I think this bottom holds. If we see major geopolitical stress again in the world, like then we can push down lower. But if that doesn't happen, then I think we are generally bottoming, but I do think that you need to be aware of bearish pressure coming in. The NYO is going to be very volatile. The markets are still relatively choppy right now. They are. That's just the truth. So I mean, if you really want to buy Bitcoin, just wait. Okay, just wait for bullish momentum to kick in after the NYO. Wait for a break above the 7-day rolling VWAP, and when we have that, okay, that's the moment that you can actually get into a position. But I think getting into a position right now makes no sense, because I would even go as far as saying that I think it is a possibility, especially again, like I said, with the volatility index, with this news coming out, even though it's good news, I think there's a possibility we're still going to revisit that level right here, right? So that level either at 64,800, where we have the naked point of control, or the single print, which is sitting at 63,000. So be aware of that, okay? As long as you're aware that that's a possibility, that we can spike down, that we can push down into that, you're fine, okay? And we are fine, because this data long term, for those of you tuning in a little bit later, we had good data, right? I mean, inflation rate lower than expected, month on month and year on year. CPI lower than expected. The other data neutral. So this is definitely bullish data, bullish news. But unfortunately, short term, which I think most of you care about, at least if you're you know, for today, and if you're watching this live stream, short term it can be tricky. I still think we're forming a local bottom, but short term I think it is slightly more likely that we're going to push down lower. Those are my thoughts. Those are my thoughts for now, at least. But I'll be back with a middle of the day market update later today, of course. Yeah, who is this? I think so too. I think back in December we also had much better data than expected. Retail bought, and that's when OTC desk and market makers started to sell, and the price actually dropped down. Solana reacted bad. Did Solana really? No, man, Solana is doing fine. Solana is barely moving. And it's still holding that massive support, or that important support at 77 and 78. Adebayo, yes, I do follow European football. And what I make of Arne Slot is just a temporary downturn. I think he'll be fine. I'm a big Liverpool fan, so I'm biased, but I think they'll be fine. Keanu, these are the inflation rates. Everything as expected, except for the CPI. Any inflation rates, the normal inflation rates, those were lower than expected. So generally, this is bullish data. But that does not necessarily mean that it's going to be a bullish result in the markets. But that is something we'll see. Yeah, we still have a CME gap, but where's that CME gap? I mean, that CME gap is all the way here. Like, yeah, sure, maybe we can fill that, but then we would need some strong momentum then the volatility index at least needs to fall. So I know about the CME gap, but it's a bit of a dream for now. I don't think it is most likely. Okay, yeah, I think, and thank you, Drew. But I think we're going to stop the live stream here. We covered the data. Crypto J, what question? On Tau. Yeah, I'll make a video on that. Hopefully in the weekend. In the weekend, I'll make an update on the long term for BitTensor, because I already wanted to do that in the last couple of days, and I just did not see your question. I'm sorry, but I wanted to make a video on that. So Wouter, same thing. I'm covering Tau. I'm covering BitTensor in the weekend. I think then we'll do a short term. We'll do a long term. I think it actually has potential if we reclaim $165. I just looked at it. So I will cover Tau again, but it's going to be it's going to be the weekend. I think that works. So. Okay, thank you for watching, everybody. We're going to close the live stream here. Quick summary: inflation rate, good data, good result. It's lower than expected. So long term, that's bullish. Short term, I still am a little bit cautious. I actually think it is slightly more likely, even though I think we're forming a local bottom right here in the crypto markets. I think short term it is a little bit more likely that we're going to push down, or at least that's better to assume. So those are my thoughts. Cricket Legends, Ethereum, it has exactly the same effect, right? So what I just said about Bitcoin, the same I expect on Ethereum. But that's it for now. Thank you for watching, everybody. I'll see you all in my next videos. I have some videos coming out, or I have the middle of the day market update, of course, coming out later today. And if you're interested in that, some of you might know that I also have a channel on stocks. I very much enjoy those too. So if you're interested in some stock market updates, I cover gold and silver there as well, most likely today. Then check that out. It's the name is very, very creative, I have to say. It's Cilinix Stocks. So hopefully I'll see you there. But for now, that's it. Thank you for watching, everybody. I'll see you all in my next videos. Take care.